our knowledge, the Taliban checkpoints, they are letting through people showing American passports.
President Biden this afternoon. Let's bring in House Armed Services Committee member, Florida Congressman Mike Waltz. Waltz, also a combat decorated Green Beret, served a number of years in Afghanistan. Congressman, you were on that call this afternoon, a short time after those remarks, with the Defense Secretary. What did he say?
Yeah, Brett, the contradictions that either spin the lies or this administration is either clueless or heartless. I haven't figured it out yet, or all of the above. But we have the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, saying there's no al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. You have his press spokesman saying, well, yeah, they are. They're there, but they're not as much of a threat since 2001. You've got the President saying that Americans are getting through no problem. You have the Secretary of Defense saying that they're getting beaten at Taliban checkpoints, and you have the Commander-in-Chief saying, or our allies are saying, yeah, no big deal, no problem. But you have the British Parliament condemning the Biden administration, and you have Merkel's successor saying this is the biggest embarrassment in NATO's history. Brett, I can't think of a time in modern history where we have looked more feckless and weak. And, I'm in touch with special operators downrange that they are ready to go get our Americans, and their hands are being tied behind their back by this White House.
All right, so I want you to take off your Republican congressman hat that is obviously politically hitting this administration, and Democrats are doing it too. And I want you to put back on the Green Beret and say, what do we need to do as military? Can they draw up a plan and say, Mr. President, this is what we need to do? What militarily do we need to do on the ground?
Well, first of all, we need to get the force in place to go get our Americans behind enemy lines. We have thousands that are behind enemy lines. And from a negotiation standpoint, there just seems this fear of what the Taliban will do or some type of escalation. We need to put the fear in them, period, right? That it's in their interest to not touch a hair on a single American's head. And guess what, Taliban? We're coming in with force if necessary to get them out. We don't even know how many are inside Kabul versus out in the hinterlands. The other piece, Brett, is opening additional safe zones, taking Bagram back, which is the major air base to the northeast of Kabul, and making it clear that we're going to be there as long as it takes to get every single American, no one left behind, and our interpreters and their families. From the State Department standpoint, Brett, there are literally a dozen congressional offices that I know of with all hands on deck, congressional offices with their staffs fighting through the bureaucracy to help people that have reached out to us by the hundreds. These are people that stood with us. I can't think of any immigrant that deserves to be here more than we do, more than they do. And the State Department needs to streamline that process drastically. Biden needs to take a page from Ford's playbook, directed his administration to get the South Vietnamese out and put everything and every asset into it. Brett, this is like a self-inflicted Dunkirk. It really is. But Biden is no Churchill, and I'm incredibly afraid and fearful for our allies and our fellow American citizens today.
You mentioned al-Qaeda, and I'm going to play this soundbite, the president and then the Pentagon spokesman, John Kirby.
What interest do we have in Afghanistan at this point with al-Qaeda gone?
We know that al-Qaeda is a presence as well as ISIS in Afghanistan. What we believe is that there isn't a presence that is significant enough to merit a threat to our homeland.
Okay, I'm going to take some time and just read this. This is from the Dispatch. Thomas Jocelyn spends a lot of time, he's been on the show a lot, about al-Qaeda. And he says, no, Mr. President, al-Qaeda is not gone from Afghanistan. I've spoken with several U.S. officials who think at least hundreds of al-Qaeda men were released during Taliban jailbreaks this year. Some of these terrorists are al-Qaeda bigwigs. I've tracked the presence of al-Qaeda and affiliated groups in at least 18 of Afghanistan's 34 provinces from November 2020 to April 2021. In In June, the UN Security Council reported that large numbers of al-Qaeda fighters and other foreign extremist elements aligned with the Taliban are located in various parts of Afghanistan. In addition, a significant part of the leadership of al-Qaeda resides in Afghanistan and Pakistan's border region. In the spring, the Defense Intelligence Agency reported that the Taliban has maintained close ties with al-Qaeda. In January, the U.S. Treasury Department reported that al-Qaeda is gaining strength in Afghanistan while continuing to operate with the Taliban under the Taliban's protection. Lastly, al-Qaeda capitalizes on its relationship with the Taliban through its network of mentors and advisors who are embedded with the Taliban, providing advice, guidance, and financial support. This is a guy who knows this stuff. You were on the ground in Afghanistan. How can the president say that al-Qaeda is gone?
Again, either lying or clueless. I'm not sure, but Biden's own intelligence community briefed the Congress repeatedly that al-Qaeda and the Taliban are married at the hip. I am convinced, have been saying for years, that if this happens, al-Qaeda 3.0 will come roaring back. It is heartbreaking to see this on the eve of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. But Brett, this is going to be far worse, right? This is going to be far worse than when ISIS came roaring back, when this same team that's around Biden was around Obama and pulled us out of Iraq too soon, the ISIS caliphate and attacks around the world. Because at least around Iraq, if you look at the map, we had bases and we had allies. We had the Kurds, we had Turkey, we had bases in Israel and the Gulf states. Look around the map in Afghanistan. We have nothing. Not a single country has agreed to host American forces. All of our local allies are being hunted down as we speak, and the Taliban are going to be armed to the teeth by storehouses of heavy equipment, tanks, and ammunition.
Let me ask you one more thing.
Sure.
For people who say that the president is right, that America wanted to end the forever war, the troops on the ground in Afghanistan, and you look at the threat assessment and you look at what's happening, how do you answer that? It is still politically popular to bring troops home, but we're going to be facing a lot of threats going forward.
Brett, I've talked about this in many town halls. And when you ask people, do you want the troops out of Afghanistan? Of course, the numbers are in the 70s, 80%. I want us out of Afghanistan. Every veteran, everyone does. But when you ask the question, you want us out of Afghanistan, if it means al-Qaeda 3.0, more 9/11s, Pulse nightclubs, San Bernardinos, and the American homeland is at risk, should we stay on an offense versus defense? The answer is very different. But this president didn't bother to explain the real risks and choices to the American people. And frankly, a number of administrations, I don't think, have looked at it that way. But that's the risk we face right now. That's the reality. And we have to live in the reality that we live in. Al-Qaeda fully intends to hit us again if given the chance.
Congressman Mike Waltz from Florida, again, Green Beret, thanks for the time.
All right. Thanks, Brett.